This is the Database Lab 2 training. So I've already downloaded the instruction file and the work file. So I'm going to open the Database Lab 2 training instruction file. And this lab is basically about performing queries in a database software program. We're using Access, and queries are just retrieving certain information from your database file. So instruction 1 here is open the database file customers that you downloaded from Blackboard for this assignment. If on the message bar a security warning is displayed, then there will be a button there that says Enable Content. Click on the Enable Content button in order to be able to work in the file. So I'm going to minimize my directions file, open my customers database file, and right here, if you see a security warning, there's going to be an Enable button. You click on it to enable the content. Okay, the next instruction is create a query for the customer table that includes the customer number, customer name, amount paid, and sales rep number, fields, and the design grid for all customers where the sales rep number is 49. Okay, we're going to save the query as sales rep number 49. We're going to auto fit or best fit the column with. So I'm going to minimize my instruction file. I'm going to, from my taskbar, open my customer database file. And to create a query, up here on the ribbon, click on the Create tab. And in your queries group, we're going to use the Query Wizard. It's the easiest. We will use the query design a little bit later. So I'm going to select the Query Wizard. And the new query box, when it pops up, you will always use Simple Query Wizard for all the labs in this course. It should default to it. If not, click on Simple Query Wizard. Click OK. And the directions said, from the customer table, we need the customer number, name, amount paid, and sales rep. So up here in your drop-down box for tables and queries, drop down the arrow and find the customer table if it's not already selected. And the requirements were the customer number. So click on the customer number and click the arrow pointing to the right to select it. The next one was customer name. I can click on customer name, which is already selected, and click the arrow to the right, or just double click customer name. Amount paid. So I will find the amount paid. I can either single click and click the arrow to the right, or I could have double clicked. And the next field is sales rep number. I'm going to double click. So now we've finished selecting the fields that we wanted. Click the next button. And you're always going to select detail here. It defaults to details. So every time you see the Simple Query Wizard, when you're here on the detail or summary, we always want detail. So click the next button to accept the default. And we're going to name the query from the instructions. We want to name it sales rep number 49. So we're going to call it sales rep number 49. And we have to modify the query because they want only the sales rep for 49. If we open the query right now, it's going to be all the sales reps. So we've got to click in the radio button in front of Modify the Query Design. And notice we're finished with the wizard. We don't have any more next button, so click Finish. And I don't need the property sheet right now. I'm going to close that out. But in order to get just the sales reps, now I can, if I need to see more fields, this is like any window in your Windows environment. You can enlarge in it. I need the sales reps that are only number 49. So how you query it, meaning just retrieve that certain information from your table, using the sales rep number column and the intersection of the criteria row, you type in a 49 because that's what the requirement is. Only sales reps number 49 do you want to see. So the criteria row is 49, sales rep number 49. So take the intersection of that column and row. And up on your toolbar, you have a red exclamation mark. And underneath it, it says Run. Click on that. And it should display only the sales rep number 49. If I pull up my sheet here, just to compare my results, I'm going to look at these and compare them to what I found. And they are correct. Yes. And it also says here, auto fit or best fit all the columns. So if any of the data is cut off, what you can do is this little square up here next to the customer number is the select all. So if I'm going to unselect it just to show you, just right here, this little square right next to customer number. And then just like in Excel, if you point to any one of the lines that separate two field names and your pointer changes to the black plus sign with the arrows pointing left and right, you double click and auto fits all of the columns. Okay, so we've completed that. I'm going to close it. If it asks me to save it, I'm going to say yes. And our next instruction is to create a query for the customer table that includes the customer number, customer name, and amount paid, fields for all customers located in Virginia with a paid amount greater than $1,000. We're going to save the query as Virginia customers paid more than $1,000 and also auto fit or best fit the columns. Okay, so I'll bring up my database file. I'm going to create another query. So up on the ribbon, I'm going to click on the Create tab. I'm going to go ahead and use the Query Wizard again. We will always accept the Simple Query Wizard, so click OK. Okay, now make sure the requirements were from the customer table, so just make sure you have the customer table as an active table. We need the customer number, so I'm just going to double click this time in the available field, which will bring it over to the selected field. Customer number, customer name, and amount paid. Okay, that's all. And now, let me go ahead. We need to do Virginia. Let's just pretend we forgot. Because we're not going to display Virginia, but we do need Virginia for the query. So let's just do this, and I'll show you how, if you mess up, you can fix it. So click on the Next button. We'll always have detail. Click on Next. And we're going to name this Virginia customers paid more than $1,000. Okay, so we've named it. We have to modify it because we have the requirements that the customer must be from Virginia and they must have a paid amount greater than $1,000. So we're finished with the wizard, so click Finish button. And when I'm trying to do my query here, I'm going to go ahead and enlarge my customer field box, table box. I need the customers, I have to query so that they're from Virginia. I did not bring down the state field because the requirements just said customer number, customer name, and amount paid. But I have to have Virginia in order to do the query. So now that I'm in Design View, in order to get the state field down here so I can query it, in the field name list, all you have to do is double click on the field you want. So we're going to double click on state. It comes down into our properties sheet, and the requirement is that the state should be Virginia. So in the state field, the state column, and on the criteria row, so find the intersection of the state field column, criteria row, type in a VA for Virginia. Amount paid, the requirement was that it has to be greater than, so type in a greater than symbol, 1,000. Now you cannot put in a $ sign and you cannot put in a comma. It just has to be the 10000. Okay, I'm going to run it. So up here on my toolbar, I'm going to click the red exclamation mark. And if I compare this to my instruction sheet, we were only supposed to display customer number, customer name, and amount paid. and I've got the customers right, casual and environment, I don't want Virginia to display. So I'm going to go back to my Access work file, and on the Home tab in the Views group, I'm going to drop down the View button, go to Design View, and on the row that says Show and the State column, so the intersection of the State column and the Show row, click the check mark to uncheck it. Now run it, and when we compare our query results to what we have in our instruction sheet, it matches perfect. Okay, so I'm going to close out of that query. If it asks you to save it, say yes. I'm going to bring up my next instruction. Number 5, create a query for the customer table that includes the customer number, customer name, street, city, for all the customers whose name begins with a T. We're going to save the query as name begins with T customers. And how you query just customers that begin with a T, we have what we call a wildcard symbol, and it's asterisk. So in my query criteria, if I type in under the customer's name T with an asterisk, then it will display everything in that field that begins with a T and anything after that. So that the T is the wild card, or the asterisk is the wild card. So I'm going to bring up my work file, and on the ribbon I'm going to click on the Create tab. I'm going to do the Query Wizard again. We'll always accept simple. And the requirements are from the customer table. We need the customer name number, so I'm going to double click on it. Customer name, I'm going to double click on it. The street, I'm going to double click on street. The city, double click city. And that's all the requirements the instructions tell us, so click on the next button. We're going to call it customer name begins with T customers. Okay, so we've typed in the name. We're going to have to modify the query because there are restrictions to it. There's criteria we have to meet. So click at the Modify button, click on Finish. And in the cell that intersects the customer name and their criteria row, click in that cell, type in a T with an asterisk behind it, which would be a Shift 8. Run the query. So up here on the toolbar, click on the red exclamation Run. And I have 2 customers, so I'm going to compare it with my results here. It should be tan and tone in the workout place. Tan and tone in the workout place. Street, city, it all matches. So it's correct. So I'm going to close this query. If it asks me to save it, I'm going to say yes. And we'll go to the next query. Now we're going to create a query for the customer table that includes customer name, customer number, customer name, and balance. We're going to sort this in descending order by balance. And we want to display only the top 25% of records in this query. And we're going to save it as top 25% balance. Okay, I'm going to bring up my work file. I'm going to, from the ribbon, click on the Create tab. If it is not selected, I'll go ahead and use the Query Wizard. Simple query, so click OK. And the requirements are from the customer table. So I'm going to make sure I have the customer table. We need the customer number, customer name, and balance. Double click balance. Okay, I'm going to click the next button. We'll always accept details, so click on the next button. We're going to name this query Top 25 Balance Due. Okay, so we've typed in the title. There are certain criteria we have to meet, so we will have to modify the design. So click in the radial button in front of Modify. We're finished with the query, so click the Finish button. And the instructions say to sort the records in descending order by balance. So find the balance field, which is the column, and on the sort row, click in the cell that intersects the balance field and the sort row, and when you click in that cell, you'll have a drop down arrow appear. Drop down that arrow, and the instructions say to be in descending order, so select descending. But they also want only the top 25% of these records. And how you do this is on the Query Tools Design tab. In the Query Setup group, there's a Return drop-down arrow. So right here, on the Query Tools Design tab, in the Query Setup group, you have a Return option. Drop down that arrow and click on 25%. Now let's run the query. So up on your toolbar, click on the red exclamation Run button. And comparing this to our instructions, Woody, the workout, Blondie's, and Just Natural, Woody's workout, they match. So it was correct. We did it correctly. So I'm going to close this query. If it asks you to save it, say yes. Bring up my instruction file. And now what we have to do is define a one-to-many relationship between the primary customer table and the sales rep table based on the sales rep number. And we're going to enforce referential integrity and save the changes. If I open the customer table, here's a customer name, customer number, street, city, zip, amount paid. If I open the sales rep table, the sales rep table has each sales rep number, and there's 4, 44, 49, 51, 55, the sales rep's first and last name and their address. What I have to do is to build a relationship. You have to, in order to get 2 different fields from these tables, to sync the tables, you have to build a relationship. So what you're going to make is a relational database. And how you do that is up on the ribbon, click on the Database Tools tab. In the Relationships section, click on the Relationships button. And we need to relate these 2 tables, so make sure you have the Tables tab active. Click on the first table there, which is Customer. Click on the Add button. Click on the next table, which is Sales Rep. Click on the Add. And then close your Show Table box. And I'm going to just make this a little bit larger, just like any window. You can resize it. And the relationship is to be built on the Sales Rep field. So the 2 here, the 2 fields that match in these 2 tables is Sales Rep number and Sales Rep number. So what you have to do is you point to the Sales Rep number in your first table. Left click your mouse button, hold it down, drag across and point to the Sales Rep number in the second table and let go of your mouse. You have an Edit Relationship dialog box come up, and you're relating them through the sales reps from each table. The next box that says Enforce Referential Integrity, check mark that. And then you're going to click the Create button. And what the Enforce Referential Integrity means is if you try to enter a sales rep number in the sales rep table and they don't have a corresponding sales rep for the customer, it won't let you do it. And if you have a sales rep in the sales rep table, they have got to have a sales rep in the customer. So you don't have what they call orphans. So this is how you relate the tables. So click the Create button. And then we're going to close this. If it asks you to save it, say yes. Bring up our instructions. And so we've made that relationship between the tables. Now we're going to create a query for the customer table and related sales table. So here we're going to have a query, and we're using fields from both tables, and we can because we made that relationship between the tables. Okay, so from the customer table, we're going to have the sales rep table. We're going to have sales rep number, first name, last name, and from the customer table, we're going to have customer number, customer name, and balance. And we're going to sort this in ascending order by the sales rep's last name and then customer name. We're going to name it sales rep and their customer. So I'm going to bring up my Access file. I will go ahead and do the, on the ribbon, click on the Create tab. And let's go ahead and use the wizard again. We will always accept simple. And now from the sales rep table, we are required to have the sales rep number. So I'm just going to double click sales rep number, first name, then last name. And then from the customer table, so I'm going to drop down my arrow and now switch to the customer table. I need the customer number, customer name, and balance. Okay, those are all the required fields from the instructions here. And now I'm going to click the next. I'm going to click next again because we always want detail. And now we're going to type in the name of the. Okay, so we've named our query. There are criteria. So we're going to have to now click on the modify the query design. Click the finish button. And on the instructions, we want to sort the records in ascending order by sales rep last name and customer name. Okay. So I'm going to bring up my work file. So we want to, in the sales rep's last name here, so find the intersection of the sales rep last name and the sort row, and this should be ascending. And then next we are going to sort by customer name. Let's find the customer name field and click in on the sort row. Drop down the arrow and select ascending. And let's run the query. So up here on the toolbar, click on the red exclamation run. And if we look at the results here, compared to our sheet, we should have sales rep 49, 44, and 51. And it should be sorted by the sales rep last name and then the customer name. So when I look at the results, they are the same. So the query was performed correctly. So I'm going to close this query out. If it asks me to save it, oh, I won't let me cancel. There again, each time for each instruction, if the fields aren't wide enough to see the data in them, you'll always say auto fit or best fit all the column widths. So here, there again, you can just click on the select all button and go to any one of the lines that separate two field names and just double click. So this one was fine. So now I'll close it and save it. But that's going to be a common command for each step. The next one, we're going to create a query from the customer table to display the average min and max balances for all customers. Now we're going to use a query design here, and you're going to see how the design works. We're going to use query design. We're going to select the customer table, then we're going to double click the balance field 3 times, and we're going to use the totals button to group for each grouping. What the totals button is going to bring us in some functions just like in Excel. And we want to display the field headings as average balance, minimum balance, and maximum balance. And we're going to save the query as average, min, max balance. Okay, so I'm going to, from my taskbar, reactivate my Access work file. And now on the ribbon, make sure you click the Create tab if it's not selected. And we're going to do Query Design this time. So click on the Query Design button. And the instructions they hit said to select the Customer table. So on the Show Table box, make sure your Tables tab is active. Click on the Customer table, click the Add button, and then you can close your Show Table box. And we need the min, max, and average balance. So if you double click from your customer table field list, double click balance, it comes down here into the property sheet. Double click it again, and double click once more, and that's what the instructions said. Double click the balance field 3 times. And then now use the totals button. So up here on your toolbar, you have a button. That's the sigma symbol, just like we saw in Excel, that had all the functions in it. Click on the Totals button. When you do, a brand new row came down here in your Properties, and it was called Total. And in the first balance, we need the average. They want us to find the average balance for the first one. So on the first balance field, on the total row, click in the cell that says Group By. When you do, a drop-down arrow appears. Drop down that arrow and select AVG for average. In the second balance field, in the Group By cell, click in it. Your drop-down arrow appears. Drop down that arrow and select MIN for minimum function. In the third balance field, in the Group By cell, click in it. Drop-down arrow comes down, and now click maximum. Now the requirements are that we must put in the titles average balance, min balance, and max balance. How you do that is, in the first field, click in front of the B for balance, type in average, A-V-E-R, A-V-E, ooh, lordy. Okay, just make sure the insertion point, blinking bars in front of the B in balance, type in A-V-E-R-A-G-E, average, type in the word balance again, and then type in a colon. So what you have to have is, on the left-hand side of the colon is the name of the field as it's going to appear when we run it. On the right-hand side is the name of the field we're using. So I know it looks crazy, average balance, colon balance, but that's what you have to do. So now for the second field, click in front of the B for balance, and this is minimum. Type in minimum balance, colon. Now I'm going to run it to show you that if you don't change the name, what it's going to look like. So let's go ahead and run it. So up here on your toolbar, click on the Run button. Now I can't see everything, so I'm going to click on the Select All, which is the square next to average, and then point to any one of the lines that separate the two fields and double click so I can see. So because I named mine, this first cell, if I go back to the design view, here I named it average balance, here I named it min balance, but I didn't name my third one. So when I go to look at it, this says average balance, minimum balance, this just says max of. So it will put a name in there for you, but it's just not a very meaningful name. So I'm going to go back and fix this one. So I have to now switch back to design view. So on my drop down arrow on the view button, go to design view. And now on the third balance, click in front of the B in balance and type in maximum balance, colon, and leave the other balance there. So it's going to be average balance, colon balance, minimum balance, colon balance. And make sure that's a colon, not a semicolon, and not a comma, and maximum. So I'm going to now run it, and this is the way it should look. There again, it's cutting it off here. So I'm going to do my Select All, double click. I'm going to compare my results to my handout, to my instruction sheet, and they match. So notice, because we did the query design, look at the name of this query, Query 1, which is really not meaningful. So you can now, because we have to name it average, min, max balances, you can either click on the Quick Access toolbar, the diskette, and now it's going to ask you to name it, or if you close it here, and it knows you didn't save it, you can also say, do you want to save it? Yes, and it's going to ask for the name. So now we're going to type in the name of it. Okay, so we've typed in the name. We can click OK, and it's closed. If over here on your navigation bar, if you want to see more screen, you can close or collapse it or expand. So this is your navigation bar. Also, if you want to see, you have different views. You can look at your your tables and your queries, so you can experiment with that. Tables and related views, or so you have different ways to view your tables also. No, I would have that go off on me. Okay, here we go. Okay, the next query we're going to build is create a query for the customer table to display the average balance amount for rep number 51. We're going to save the query as sales rep number 51 average balance. Okay, so I'm going to bring up my Access work file. Let's go ahead and on the ribbon click on the create and let's do the query wizard. Okay, we're going to accept the simple query wizard, and from the we want the average balance for sales rep number 51. So I'm going to go to the sales rep table and I need the sales rep number. I have to have that field. Okay, and then I need the balance from the customer tables to get that sales rep balance. So now I'm going to switch to the customer table and I'm going to accept the balance field. So I'm just going to click on the balance field and the arrow over, or you could have double clicked. Click the next button. We'll always accept details, so click next. And we're going to name it sales rep number 51 average balance. We have criteria we have to meet, so we're going to have to click the Modify the Query Design button, or radial button, click Finish. And the requirements are, we need sales rep number 51. So in the sales rep field in the criteria row, we're going to type in a 51. And we want their average balance. So we have the balance field. We need the average function. So up here on your toolbar, click on the Sigma, which is the totals button. And in the balance column, the group by total, click in the cell that says group by. A drop down arrow appears. Drop down that arrow, click on average. So now we have the average balance for sales rep 51. Up on your toolbar, click on the red exclamation. And let's compare it to our instruction sheet. The only thing is they're not showing the sales rep number 51, that column. So let's go back to our Access work file, and so we don't want sales rep. We don't want the sales rep field to appear. So on your Home tab, click the drop down arrow on the View button, click Design, and in the sales rep field on the Show row, click in the box that has the check mark, and it will uncheck mark it, so it's a toggle effect. Let's run it again, and now, other than the name, it's saying average of balance. Here, our display shows average balance, so let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to bring up my Access file again. On the Home tab, on the View button, drop down the arrow, go back to Design View, and so for the balance field, I'm going to click in front of the B for balance, and just like we did on the previous one, I'm going to type in average, the word balance, colon, and leave the other balance there. I'm going to run it again, and now I'm going to auto fit the column. So I'm just going to double click on the edge, and we have average balance, the heading $294. I'll bring up my instruction sheet, average balance $294. Okay, so that worked out. That's great. Now I'm going to close this query. It asks you to save it, say yes. Our next query here is create a query for the customer table to display the average balance amount for each sales rep. Save the query as all sales reps, average balance, and auto fit. So I'm going to bring up my Access work file. We're going to do create a query. Let's go ahead and do Query Wizard. We'll always accept simple, so click OK. And what we want here is the average balance for each sales rep. Okay, so from the customer table, I need the sales rep number, so I'm just going to scroll down here till I find sales rep number and double click on it. And then I need the balance from the customer field, so I'm going to double click on balance. So the average balance amount for each sales rep. Okay, so I have the fields I need. I'm going to click on the next button. We'll always accept detail. Click on next. We're going to name the query all sales reps average balance. Okay, so we've typed in the query title. We do have criteria we must meet, so we're going to have to modify the query design. Click on finish. And what we want is sales rep, we want all of them. The balance, we need the average. So up on your toolbar, click on the sigma, which is the totals button. And in the balance field, in the total row, in the cell that has group by, click in the group next to the group by. A drop down arrow will appear. Click on the drop down arrow. We want the average, so select AVG for the average function. And let's run the query. So up here on your toolbar, click on the red exclamation mark run button. And I'm going to compare this with my instruction sheet. And I do have 187,499. And I do have the sales rep number, but I have average balance as the title. So I'm going to now bring up my access file, and this one is defaulting. It's saying average of balance because I didn't change it. So I'm going to now click on the Home tab, and on the View button, drop down that arrow, go to Design View, and for the balance field, I want to type in average balance colon and leave that balance there. Run it. And it's cutting it off, so I'm going to do a best fit or auto fit, and I'm going to do all of it. So I'm just going to click in the select all button, double click the border, and now I'm going to compare average balance. I got my sales rep, it matches. I'm finished with this query, so I'm going to come over here and close this query. If it asks you to save it, say yes. And we'll go to the next query. We're going to create a query that displays all customers from Tennessee and their sales rep. So this is like just from Tennessee. We want to display the customer name, customer city, customer state, then the sales rep last name, sales rep first name, and sales rep commission rate. We're going to sort the query by city in ascending order, and we're going to name the query Tennessee customers and sales rep. So I'm bringing up my Access work file. On my ribbon, I'm going to click on the Create tab. Let's do the Query Wizard. This is a good example of using the Query Wizard one. We'll always accept Simple Query Wizard. Click OK. And drop down your arrow and go to the Customer table. And from the Customer table, we need the fields customer name, customer city, customer state, and from the sales rep table, so I'm going to drop down my arrow, go to the sales rep table. We want the sales rep last name, sales rep first name, and sales rep commission rate. Okay. Click the next button. We've got all the fields. We'll always accept detail. And we're going to name the query Tennessee customers and sales reps. So we've typed in the name. There are restrictions to this. We want to see just Tennessee. So we're going to have to click the radio button in front of the modify. Click Finish. And now for the state field, the requirement is they must be from Tennessee. So find the cell that intersects the state field and the criteria row and type in TN for Tennessee. According to the instructions, we need to sort the query by city in ascending order. We're going to sort by city. So in the city field, in the sort row, so find the cell that intersects the city field and sort row. Drop down the arrow, and we want ascending. And let's run it. So click on the red exclamation mark. I'm going to compare my results with our instruction sheet. So La Beauty, Barbara, Fitness, Blondie, and they match. And it is sorted by city. I'm going to click on the Select All and just double click any one of these to best fit. So we're finished with that query, so I'm going to close it. If it asks you to save it, say yes. Bring up the instruction sheet, and got two more. Okay, number 13, we're going to create a query for all customers who have a balance between $200 and $500 to offer them an incentive to pay off the balance early so they can get a discount on their next purchase. We want to display the customer number, customer name, city, customer state, and balance. We're going to sort the query by balance in descending order. We're going to save the query as customers offered a discount. And also, as always, best fit the columns. Okay, I'm going to bring up my Access work file. On the ribbon, I'm going to click the Create tab, and we're going to use the Query Wizard. We're going to accept the Simple Query Wizard. And the requirements are from the customer table. So I'm going to drop down my arrow, go to the customer table. We want the customer number, the customer name, the customer city, and the customer state, and the customer balance. Okay, number, make sure I have them all right, then click the Next button. We'll always accept detail. Now we're going to type in the name of the query, which is customers offered a discount. We do have a criteria we must meet for this query, so we're going to have to click in the radio button in front of Modify the Design, click Finish, and the criteria is that the balance needs to be between $200 and $500. So in the properties, find the balance column in the criteria row. So click in the cell that intersects the balance column criteria row and type in the word between, BETWEEN space. Type in 200. Do not type in a $sign. Just the number 200. The word and hit the space, and then type in 500. There again, do not put any $signs or commas in any numbers in the criteria row. And let's run it, see if we get the results we're looking for. Let's compare it to our instruction sheet. So we have casual, Della, fitness, and just. Casual. Oop, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot here to sort it by balance in descending order. So mine doesn't match. I'm going to bring up my Access file again. I'm going to go back to the Design view. So click on the Home tab. Drop down the View button. Go to Design. And we need to sort this by balance. So in your balance column on the sort row, click on the cell that intersects balance column, sort row. Drop down that arrow, and we are to do descending order. Okay, now let's run it again. And let's compare Just Fitness and Della. So I'm going to bring up my instruction sheet. Just Fitness and Della, and then it should be Casual Nancy and Lee. Casual Nancy and Lee, and they match. And I have the right fields, customer state balance, right field names correct. So completed that query. So close the query. If it asks you to save it, say yes. I'm going to bring up my instruction sheet. And on the last query, we're going to create a query to calculate the commission earned by sales reps for each paid customer account. To accomplish this, we have to multiply the amount paid field in the customer table by the commission rate in the sales rep table. We're going to name the new calculated field COMM short for commission earned. We want to display the customer name, amount paid, sales rep number, sales rep last name, sales rep first name, and commission rate. And also the newly calculated field commissions earned. We're going to format the field as currency with 2 decimal places and sort the query in ascending order by sales rep number. We're going to save the query as commissions earned. And also best fit or auto fit the table column with. Okay, so I'm going to bring up my Access work file. And I'm going to do a calculation. So we're going to use, on the Create tab, in the Queries group, we're going to use Query Design this time. Okay, on Query Design, I need fields from both tables, so I'm going to select under the tables, the Customer table, and click the Add button. And I'm going to click on the next table, which is Sales Rep, and click the Add button. So I have my 2 tables. So I can now close my Show Table box. And I'm going to go ahead and enlarge the field table so I can see all the fields. And what we need from the customer table is the customer name. So I'm just going to double click on that field and it will come down here into my field box. Then we need the amount paid. We need the sales rep number. And then from the sales rep field, the table, sales rep table, we need the sales rep last name, first name, and commission rate. Now our calculated field is going to be commissions earned. And how you make a calculated field is click in the next available blank field. So in the field row, next open blank field, just have your insertion point. Up on your Query Tools Design tab, in the Query Setup group, you have a button called Builder. This is where you can build any calculation. Click on Builder. Now what we need to do is multiply the customer, the amount paid by the customer by the commission rate earned by the sales rep to see what the amount of commission he won. Okay, so what we have to do is go to our customers database. So in the expansion elements, you can click on the plus sign in front of customers database. And the fields that we need are in the tables boxes. So you can either click the plus sign in front of the tables, or I could have double clicked the tables. And from the customer table, so double click the customer table, we need the amount paid. So now I see, now that I've expanded my database file and the tables, and I've gotten to the point that I have my field names for this table, the customer table, I need amount paid. So double click on amount paid. It comes up into your expression builder box. I need to multiply that by the commission rate. So type in a asterisk, which would be a Shift 8, or it'd be the asterisk on your 10-key punch. And I need to multiply it by the sales rep commission rate. So on the expression elements that we have, now we have our database file open, we have the tables opened, double click sales rep to see the fields here. We need to multiply it by the commission rate. So in the expression catalogs, double click commission rate. And so we have an expression, the amount paid the customer's amount paid times the sales rep commission rate. So click OK. And when you go into this field, it defaults to the name EXPR1. If we run it, then you're going to see the field named EXPR1, which is meaningless. Now, that colon is very, very important. We already saw that when we were naming the field names. So what we need to do is, right before the colon, just click and backspace out the name expression 1 and type in the name commissions earned. Make sure you don't do anything to that colon. Okay. So looking at the sheet, we made a new field called commission earned. Ooh, should be just COMM earned. I'll go back and fix that. And what we did, we multiplied the amount paid field from the customer table by the commission rate in the sales. We named it commission earned. Now we need to, I'm going to go ahead and run it and show you what it's going to look like before we format it to currency in 2 decimal places. But let me go ahead and sort it. I need to sort in ascending order by sales rep number. So let me bring up the file. We're going to sort in ascending order by sales rep. Okay, so sales rep column, the sort row. Click in the cell that intersects the sales rep number and the sort column. And we're going to do this in ascending order. So drop down the arrow, click on ascending. Now I'm going to, and let me go back here and fix my name, COMM. Okay, now let's run it. So up here, and we can always, if there's something messed up, we can go back to the design view and fix it. So let's run it. What's happening here is this calculation is too large. So if we double click to see it, it's not a $sign field. I mean, it's not a currency. So what we're going to do is go back and change this to currency. So I'm going to click on the Home tab, click on the drop-down arrow, go to Design View. So in order to format the commission earned field to currency with 2 decimal places, so it looks like money amounts, click anywhere here in the field name commission earned. So just make sure you're anywhere in that field name. Up on the toolbar, click on the Property Sheet button, and on the General tab, in the Format category, click in the Format label, click in the Format text box. When you do, a drop-down arrow appears. Drop down that arrow and select Currency. And the Decimal Places text box, click in that cell, drop down that arrow, and select 2. And let's run it again. And now, I'm going to do the Select All button, and this just best fit my columns. I double click on any one after I've selected it. I'm going to click in any open white space to deselect it. And I can see now here that I have the commissions earned. If I look at my sheet here, it looks pretty much close to it. Okay, now we went through Design View, so notice how this is defaulting to Query 1. So if I close it, and I haven't saved it, it's going to ask me to save it, so I'm going to close out this query. I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to name the query Commissions Earned. Click OK. I have now finished. Save and close your database file. Submit it. So I'm going to close my directions file. I'm going to close out of Access. And if you have any questions or problems, please contact me, and good luck.